Oh, well, there's gas. How we doing? It's another day at Essig Enterprises, or EE Speed. I thought we were done. I figured I was going to get this thing running. We'd do a video on taking her on down the road, giving her a bath, cleaning her out. I thought it'd be one of those, woohoo, we're done kind of videos. That'd be a negative. What this is putting in a fuel pump video. The original fuel pump didn't work. And I'm finding out that gas tanks are not the only unobtainium part for these cars. I do have the Rebel out in the field that I could steal a fuel pump off of, but again, I've got another 40-year-old fuel pump, or however old that one is. Don't want to go that route. Tried to buy a new one, nothing local available, and I probably could get an NOS one for $10,000. We're on a budget, folks. Trying to keep this on the cheap. By the way, I got a fan. If you were watching the last video, you heard a little hum from the fan. It's hot today, very hot. Hotter than Jennifer Gardner, and that's pretty hot. But we're gonna put a fuel pump in. I can't get an original. My goal was to keep this thing looking original, and it's gonna look original because this one's going in the back. I was getting ready to buy one of those little happy clickety clackety small time blah blah blahs for $75, $80. But I happen to have two, not one, but two Holley fuel pumps, electrics, that come with a little regulator, which would make things, it helps things to line up when you want to, run fuel line and stuff. Keeps it from vapor locking, which is great. So I'm going to use what I got, right? Because we're keeping it on the cheap. I just happen to have those in stock. I used to a few years ago. Was rebuilding carburetors for people pretty regular, and just kind of got burned out on it, and just decided to go what we're doing now is just kind of working on my own stuff and selling parts. I really don't do a lot of work for other folks. Occasionally, I get a buddy stop by, we'll work on his car, or an occasional small job will come up and I'll go ahead and hook them up. But on the whole, I just don't do repairs for people anymore. So, but I had those on the shelf, and I was saving them for, because they're Holley Blues, they're a little bigger than I could go with a red on this one. I've got a black, I think, in the Corvette. It's over here on the Corvette, but it's like 110 gallons a minute or some craziness. But this is more than sufficient. I could go with a smaller one, but this is what I've got. The reds, I don't think you need a regular. But anyway, so forgive me for those of you that were kind of following me on this build, and I was trying to keep everything looking original. Of course, the V8's not original, but it looks good, right? It looks original. I'm even going to leave the original fuel pump in place because I don't have a block-off plate. So we'll just leave it in place, and hopefully it won't seize up and break and drop parts inside the engine. But it does rob a little power if I can get a but man, sometimes it just gets stuck. Block off plate, there we go. You have to, English is my second language. No, not really. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and put in this Holley pump. I'm going to show you how, because I'm going to do some kind of funky stuff that most people can't do. I saw this on another show, and I'm like, I got to get me one of those. And this is going to afford me the first opportunity to use this tool. So follow this. Did I say so a lot? Whatever. Anyway, follow me on this. This is pretty much going to be it. The fuel pump installation. But we're going to run it. Hopefully, if this works. Should work. If all my lines are good and whatever. If not, it'll be installing the fuel pump and replacing the lines video. But let's get this done. We'll get this video finished and get this thing back to running again. Well, last time, if you watched the other video, the run video, it just ran. It wasn't like hooked up to any kind of fuel source or anything. It was just, running with bottle fed. So this is going to be a run video, hopefully, or not. But we're going to put in a fuel pump anyway. We're going to at least get gas to this thing, and then we'll go from there. I've got other options if this carburetor's junk. Instead of rebuilding, I got another one, and blah, blah, blah. Well, let's get to work. This is a Holley fuel pump, the one I was talking about. Well, actually, okay, I lied. It's a Summit Racing fuel pump, but it's basically a Holley. Just got a cheaper name on it, right? So you save some bucks. Just keep that in mind. Same thing. All right, and now I've got a mount that's just a 2-wire hookup. One's a ground, which you can just go right to the frame. The other one is the hot lead. This has to go to either your ignition, like when you turn on your ignition, and I might go that route. But the only one I found up there was I've got using for the distributor, so I might run this straight to a toggle and then to a battery. We'll see. We'll figure that out. But we're gonna go ahead and we got to find a place to put this. So that's the biggest thing, because this is a big kahuna. And they have some rules. The rules are it has to. The reason I was looking down is because I thought a mosquito was eating me, but it, probably is. Anyway, this has to be mounted this way, upward. If I could go this way, I could tuck her in on a frame rail. But this way, she's going to hang down no matter what I do. And I found a spot above the fuel tank, and they said, nope, it's got to be lower than the fuel tank because these suck. No, these don't suck. Yes. Got that backwards. These don't suck. They push. So just remember, if you're going to buy a Holley fuel pump, they don't suck, but they push. So no putting it up in the front like the stock ones, because the mechanical pumps suck, and the electric ones don't. So unless you want a fuel pump that sucks, you got to put them in the back. So I'm going to put it here, right here. And I bought a new tool that puts a threaded rivet, if you will, in the metal. I'm going to try that out today. So if I booger it up, bear with me, because it's the first time I've ever used it. But that's what we're going to try. So this is where we're at. I'm going to put it right here, right? This is where the leaf spring hooks up. It's got a little hole here, which I've got to try to avoid. So I may have to move my bracket down just a tidbit. But I can loosen this bracket and scoot the pump up a little bit. So I'm going to put the pump up like this, and you'll see she's hanging down just a tidbit, but I don't really have much choice. So that's the only place I could figure on putting her that's tucked up out of the way. Hopefully we won't go over anything that'll bottom out and hit that pump, and I'll be in a world of hurt. So I don't have any other place to put it. So we're going to put her here, but I'm going to put this bracket down a little bit. Right about, hook her right up into this little cranny here. I might put a little plate here to protect it, but we'll see. Maybe I need to come back. Ooh, maybe. I don't know. What do you think? Because here's the fuel line. So she crosses over right here. So if I put her right here, that'll only change my angle of dangle just a little bitty bit. Or I could put it back here. But then I'm getting muffler heat, which I don't like. So I think we're going here. Yep, I'm going to go here. Yep, definitely going here. Well, this is a little higher though, isn't it? Oh, maybe here is better. Even with the muffler heat. We can put some tape. I think we're going here. Okay, so I changed my mind. We're going here. So I'm going to make some marks. Oh, I'm not going to be able to get the drill in there. Dadgummit. But that gets me up above the bottom. This is where it's going for sure, for sure. I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little bit of a lip right here. There's a little where the support goes. And it feels perfect because I can just stick that fuel pump right there. And it kind of tucks in behind that. And, well, I'm sorry if my head's in the way, but I've got to draw where I got to put these. Oh, if I can't even get a pen up in here, how am I going to get a drill? That's going to be the fun part. Okay, but I went ahead and there you go. I got my 2 marks there. And I'm going to try. I've got all sorts of cool stuff for drilling. Worst comes to worst, we may have to use it. But that's how the fuel pump's going to go. And I can adjust it in the little clamp. It's just like a coil clamp. But she's going to go here. And that way I can take my line, my wiring, and I can follow these fuel lines with it. And I don't know why they do what they do, but that's how it's going to go. Or if I want to get real fancy, I can stick them. There's a hole over here. Stick them in that hole, and I can run them in the frame all the way forward. So I got options. And I'm kind of a seat of your pants kind of guy, you know. So we don't really have a plan. We're just going to start putting stuff in and hope it works. But I know I tried over and over and over again. I'm going to say it again until y'all are tired of hearing me say it, which you probably already are. I didn't want to use an electric pump. I've got electric pumps on everything I own, and this was going to be different. But I hate mechanical pumps because they suck. We've already established that. So I like a pushy. Give me a pump that's a pusher. You know what I mean? So that's where we're at. Let's get started. Let's see if I can't drill these holes. This is going to be fun, folks. Hang in there and watch this. Alright, just a tad bigger. Hopefully not too big. Like I said, I don't know what I'm doing, so. Oh, shoot. The trigger fell off. I paid 99 cents for this drill quite a few years ago. I think I overpaid, but now the trigger's falling off and I gotta find it again. So hang with me. Wouldn't you know it, it fell into the deepest, darkest corner of the lift that I could possibly find. Alright. Muffler makes a really good place to hang your tools. Now, let's see if I can get this thing in here. Alright. And, oh my gosh. Ugh. Maybe gotta go a little further? I don't know. How do I get it off of there? I think you just unscrew it. There. Let's see if it's in there. Looks kind of cool. You know, they give you the inserts with the kit, but they don't give you the nuts that go in it. So let's see if this works. Well, it works. Well, I'll be. So now tightening it down, I don't know how strong she's going to be, but let's go ahead and drill the other hole. I think that was it, wasn't it? There we go. Here we go. Now they're mounted in there, and I really crushed the heck out of that one. But it seems to work pretty good. So let's go ahead and see if we can't mount this old girl in here. this is. Alright. Phew. Felt like hours for me, but that's perfect right there. She's tucked up in there, a little close to the muffler. I don't really like that, but it is what it is. I'm not tightening it down yet because I got to mess with fuel lines. I got to get me some fittings. I should have done that before I put it up in there, but no, not me. So, and then I got to cut this line here, cut this line here, which I'll probably have to take the pump back out so I can clear that line out. Yep, I'm brilliant. And then we'll go ahead and hook up some lines. Let's see if I got some fittings. I had to take the fuel pump back off. One, I got to access those fuel lines so I can cut them. Two, I forgot to put the rubber gasket back here that keeps it from making your car go when it's running. So, let me do that again. Anyway, one of the number one things you got to remember is when dealing with carburetors or aluminum fuel pumps, or anytime you're using a pipe fitting, a pipe tap fitting, or pipe plugs, anything that's a tapered fitting. And the way a pipe plug works is it's actually tapered, and that taper goes down inside here and it gets tighter and tighter as it's going in. If you're using aluminum, you can over tighten it and you'll end up cracking your housing. And the popular thing is when you're dealing with a fitting like this is a pipe tap. A lot of times you use Teflon tape. In this case, when you're doing aluminum, you really, and fuel in general, but you can use it for fuel, but in general, when you're using aluminum and you're putting something else in it, you don't want to crack it, so you don't use Teflon tape. What I use is basically Teflon, putty. And that way it doesn't take up any space, but it will fill the threads in so it doesn't leak, and it will resist fuel. So what I do is I'll just put a little bit on the fitting. Mine's a little old, so it's starting to separate, but you just kind of thread her in there. And you don't have to go over the whole thread, because as you spin it in, it's going to go ahead and do that. And then you just get your wrench, and I use a short wrench. Don't use a real long one because you'll over torque it again. And I just use a small wrench and I just tighten it until she's good and snug. If you hear a cracking noise, that's bad. It's very bad. So just kind of giving her a little. That's it. Nothing huge. You don't want to torque her down. It almost looks to me like she bottomed out a little bit. And if that happened, it happened. As long as she doesn't leak, and she might. In a case like that, I may have to put Teflon tape just because I didn't get enough taper there, but I think we're good. And if you look, this does, well, you probably can't tell, but there's no bottom here. So if you tried to use a bottom fitting, that's not going to work either. So we're just going to put this other one in here. And again, don't tighten your vise too much either, because you'll crush the hole, and that'll cause some issues too. So you got to kind of be gentle when you're dealing with aluminum fittings, And there we go. Put a little smidge on there. See, just a little smidge. And turn her in there. And don't think that craftsmanship on these things is always wonderful. Like in this particular case, you'll watch, this fitting's going way, way deep in there. And that could be because they tapped these holes too deep. And like I said, if I have to, I could put Teflon tape in there to take up more space. But then you got to be double careful and don't put too much, just to make sure you don't crack that housing. Okay. So, but this wrench is so short, unless you really, lean on it, you're going to be good. So if you just palm it like I'm doing, like I could get back here and really torque on it, but I'm just going to palm it, fingertip it, whatever you want to call it, and that feels pretty good. Just nice and snug. And in this particular case, because I'm using a blue pump, if you will, the blue pumps, that is a blue one, right? Yeah, I think. I've also got to use a regulator. So I've already done the regulator, did the same thing. I got the Teflon putty on these fittings, and these were tapped good because you can see they're not all the way down. And then I put Teflon tape on where it's brass to brass, okay? By the way, these fittings, $6 a piece. And you can't buy one that goes from the 1/4 inch national pipe tap to the 5/16 nipple. So you have to buy two. So that's $10 just for that. Owies, right? Jeepers crow. But anyhow, she's ready to go. She's ready to go. So let's go put it back on the car. Starting to get a little ahead of myself. I forgot. I got to change these because this is a ground. So that is just going to go boop right to the chassis. Where am I? Here we go. Boop right to the chassis. So I don't need this type of fitting. Plus, this is inviting. These are good fittings because I think they're copper or brass. So they're good fitting. It's just, you know, anytime you put something together, and I do have things to clamp on there, you're inviting corrosion in here though, and I don't really want to invite that. And you've seen me use these 100 times, and these are solder fittings. It's just a crimp fitting with a solder thingy in the middle, and you heat it up and it melts that solder, and then it joins the two pieces of wire. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this on this end, and I'm going to put a piece of shrink tube before, so, and that way once I do join it to the other wire, I can put the shrink tube on there, and that way this will be waterproof and hopefully corrosion proof. This one, it's a ground, but I still don't want it to get, I don't want it to get corrosion on it, and I can't do anything about this end, obviously. But on this end, I'm going to go ahead and put a tiny bit of shrink tube as well. So that's where we're at with that. I'm just going to go ahead and cut this off real quick. Well, cut this off real quick. I'm going to cut this off real quick. Okay, I'm going to cut this off real quick. There we go. Phew, that was wonderful. Okay, and then we're just going to strip her back. Here we go. They don't have the same quality on there. That's aluminum wire. Not the best. You know, it's a good conductor, but not as good as copper, brass, whatever. But that's what we got, so that's what we're going to do. We'll stick this in here. My trusty $16 Titan brand. Make sure we're in there. Good and tight. This one we're gonna let's try that again. This goes to prove, you know, everybody makes mistakes, and I just put the wrong one on the wrong one and just wasted a very expensive fitting. You know, see, I won't edit this out because I want you all to see that, yep, pole body's perfect. Look at that, snap of the fingers and fixed. The wonders of video. But I'm just going to put my shrink tube on here, run it to about there. What do you think of that idea? Look pretty good for you? I'm going to put my shrink tube on like now, and that way I won't forget. We're just going to stick her all the way up here, and that way when I put her in the car, if I forget to put my shrink tube on, it's sitting right here waiting for me. So now we got the right wire, and we're going to go ahead and do this crimp again. Kind of hard to hold the hand so you can see what's going on. There we go. Cool thing about these pliers is they won't open until you fully crimp. So that's kind of cool. So now this is ready to go. This is a shrink tube as well to a point, but it won't shrink down far enough to be tight. So that's why I like to use the other piece of shrink tube as well. This one I used a little bit too big of shrink tube, but I couldn't get the other one over this. I could have put it on first, but it is what it is. This will work just fine. It's a ground after all. Let's go put her in now. Let's go put her in the car. Taking these two screws out that hold the fuel line in, holding them to the chassis. I do want to use one of these, probably this one right here, if it's not in the way. Or I may have to drill a new one. Might be better off by drilling a new one, just because these are old and crusty and may not get a good ground. But I'm going to have to cut this fuel line at some point. So I'm going to pull it free here, and that way we can. I got a really mini tubing cutter here, and we're going to cut her back a little ways so that I can have a little room to put a. Come on. Man, it's just. These little mini tubing cutters are worth their weight in gold, but they don't work as good as the bigger ones, just because they're small and they just don't have the torque, if you will, to get her cut. But they work. Hopefully this one's not going to spill gas all over me. I don't think there's any gas in the line, because I tried pulling gas from this before, but of course the pump wasn't working. But I tried pressurizing the tank, and that didn't work either, so not really sure. Maybe I vented this tank a little too well. But there we go, that's loose. So now I'm going to pull it out over here, and I'm going to cut it back over at about here, which you can't see. So let's adjust the camera, shall we? Oh, that one had a little gas in it. Look out! Old, nasty gas, though. Probably a remnant of days gone by. Oh, there we go. Oh, that brake line doesn't look super good either. Golly. Well, it works. Okay, so now, as usual, I got to put a little flare on the end of each of these to help keep the hose on. It's always best to put a little flare on something, on a line, because there you go, see a little better. Put that flare on there, and that keeps the line, when you put a rubber hose on there, gives the clamp something to keep that hose from coming off of there. Because if you just stick it on a straight piece of line and you build up enough pressure, especially with these electric pumps, if they start to pull out too much pressure, you'll end up blowing that off, and then you have fuel everywhere, and maybe a fire, and goodbye car, and maybe goodbye you. So I always put a flare, just a little one. It makes it a little bit more of a pain to get on there. This one I over flared a little bit, but it'll work. Better than no flare at all. So we just get my hose put on there. The hose is going to go to the fuel pump. So finally, I'm going to go ahead and put the fuel pump on. I had to wait a couple of minutes. It started raining so hard that I couldn't hear myself think. Never mind. Hey, pardon me, y'all hear me. So now I've got to try to get this little eyelet, which is going to be too small, I know it. I can tell you right now, because it's just the right size for the other. Yep, I'm going to have to drill it. So we'll get the drill and make it a little bit bigger, because this is the only size I have. I needed to get a couple more. So we're going to just drill her out a little bit. I hate when that happens. That's the only problem with using a drill. Fitting is a lot of times it'll snag it and twist it and turn it to mush. That's exactly what happened. I'll bury this all up now. Hopefully it's still usable. I may have to just go with a different size Plan B, I'm going to drill a new hole if I can get my drill in there. We got her in there once, we can do it again, I think. Of course, I got fuel lines in there now. Let's see if I can get this drill up in here. Back way, there we go. There's a lot of crap up in here now, so I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. We are going to try. I can't even see what I'm doing. But we're going to try. I'm probably going to be in the way, so there's probably not a lot of sense in you watching this, because I'm going to be in your way. Well, the visual's not real good. I apologize. Oops, and I just dropped the screw. But I ended up using a smaller self-tapper. Whoop. Because I had to. So we're just going to get the loopy thingy, and we're going to put the self-tapper in it. And then I'm going to step in front of the camera to find it and put it in the hole and get me a 1/4 inch nut driver or driver in there. But there she is. She's in. As you can see, I went ahead and put that solder fitting on there and shrunk it down. But now, even though it's got a shrink tube on it, I'm going to double shrink it. I'm going to get another shrink tube. I'm going to put it over it. And it's going to be a hard one because it's kind of big. This is a really small one. But we're going to get it. There we go. Just a little bit more. Tiny bit more. A little more. Come on. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Then we're just going to get the heat gun. We're going to shrink the shrink tube over the shrink tube. This one shrinks a lot lower temperature. And that is that. So pretty sure that's going to be nice and nicey nice as far as the connection goes. And then I am going to take this wire and I'm going to use my favorite tool. You know, there's one of my favorite shows out there is Vice Grip Garage. Just absolutely love that show. And I should have named this one Zip Tie Garage because I love using zip ties. But there we go. That way we got this wire's not going to be getting pinched anywhere, and I'm going to zip tie this bad boy to this fuel line all the way. But unfortunately, well, you can't see it here, but let's see if we can. There we go. Well, nope, can't see it. We got, let me get a better view. I've got insulation on covering all of the fuel line because of the exhaust. So now I got to take all that back off and from the fuel line and then put the insulation back on.
I've done my best and my worst, learned my lessons. No matter how hard my life would treat me, I'd always get right.
wire over here that is only, I've got 11.8. It's close enough to 12 for me. Makes the pump run. I already tested it. So I've got that all wired up, and I've got this line ready to accept a line, and this line here is coming off of the line down there that used to feed the mechanical pump, but now it's coming up this way to feed the regulator. Now the regulator has to point towards the carburetor. Well, it doesn't have to if I want to use 9,000 miles of rubber hose, but I don't. So I'm going to put it here. And by putting it here, this is pointing towards the carburetor, and the inlet is pointing down towards this line down this way. So we'll just cut this line a little bit shorter and put it right here. That's what my plan is. Here's the bracket for it, and the bracket just goes like right here. Okay? So we'll put here, this here, put it here, and it'll go just like that. Alrighty? That's the plan. That's what we're going to do. We're going to use some self-tappers, just zing them in right here. And that'll be that. Never put screws in your mouth. You might get an unexpected meal. Not to mention the germs, you know? So you shouldn't do that. See if I can get my drill in here. This has been a struggle since we started this project, is just getting these drills started. Jeepers crow. Made a mark though, so what I'll do is I'll put a little bit more mustard on it from here. So we'll just do this. Dang! I don't want to go. I wonder if that's double thick there. Oh, I don't think so. I don't know if I can see in there or not. Let's get the light and take a look-see. Nope, I think that's double-walled. That's going to be a problem. No, actually what's happening is I'm hitting the spring. Would you figure? Who'd know, right? Hitting the spring. So we may have to come up with another plan. What that plan is, give me a minute. I just got to think for a minute. There we go. Got it in. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and trim this line back while, you know, I might have to do it from underneath because I think it's going to be easier. Man, well, maybe not. We'll see. Let me grab my little mini cutter, and we're going to trim that line back, and then we got to put a little flare on it so it doesn't leak.
I'd always dare it to go even farther, 'cause I got a million reasons to keep holding on. Yeah, I got all that it takes to win and overcome. What I got is just a feeling, but it's oh so strong. It goes on and on, on and on. There's something going on inside of me. I feel it growing stronger every beat. I never just believe in what I see, 'cause I can feel the energy.
Yeehaw! Now we got to turn the ignition on and see if we have fuel pressure. We turn the key on. Alright, I may have to prime it. I can hear it running, but I don't know if there's any fuel coming through it. So I'm going to jack up the car because I've got the filter. I guess I should have put an inline filter here too. What do you think of that idea? I've got one under the car, and I didn't put one up on top. I probably should have, because then I could see if there's fuel. But I'm going to go ahead and roll the car up, and see if there's fuel in the filter. I should have got it on video, but I didn't. The filter's full now. What I did, this is an old trick I learned years ago. You take your air blast, and I took this hose right here off, and you blast the old gas tank full of air. And what it does, it pressurizes the tank and causes the gas to push outward. And the only problem with that is I was standing underneath it. So, needless to say, I've got a different shirt on because that one filled up with gas. In fact, right now, don't light a match. This shop is absolutely fumed with gas smell. So, I'm going to put this clamp back on this filter. I don't know why I chose that one, because it was closest to the tank and I wanted to fill the filter in the pump. And the pump's right after the filter here, so. But we're good now. She's full. I've got a siphon going. So I should be able to just turn the pump on and get fuel now. Keep that in mind if y'all ever need to get gas. Let me stick my head up in here. Hey! If y'all ever need to get gas through the line, pressurize the tank. And I overdid it. I did a little bit, didn't pressurize it enough, so I kind of overdid it. And then I took a bath because it was gushing out. And you can actually run your car on that pressure for a short period of time, because it'll fill the bowls of the carburetor and everything else. But that's a little trick, just in case y'all want to know. I tried it earlier from up front when I was trying to pressurize the other pump, but I actually dumped fuel into that other pump and it wouldn't pump. So now we've got this one. I'm happier, actually. I like electric pumps. So let's give it a shot, see if it works. All right, people. Keep your fingers crossed. These pumps are usually noisy once they start picking up gas. Here it is. Can you hear that? Oh. Well, there's gas, because you can see it coming out the pipage there. So that means I got a little too much fuel pressure. So I'm going to adjust that really quick. I'll show you all how to do that. To adjust this, there's a 5/8 nut on the top of it. You loosen that 5/8 nut, and then you can dial the center screw in. And the further in you go, the higher the pressure. Now you would normally put a gauge on this line right here to see what the pressure is going in on this carburetor. In my case, I've turned it all the way out, which should be almost no pressure, or actually not even hardly letting anything go. And she's still pushing past the float. So I'm going to have to do some surgery on the carburetor and see if I can get the float to work well in it. And if not, I've got another alternative. Bigger, better, faster, stronger. So I do have a fairly new Edelbrock that I stole off of 440 that I can put on this if I can't get this one to work, because this one's being a bugger. And the throttle's real stiff on it. I'll get it loosened up and it'll tighten right back up on me. The accelerator pump's not working real good, so I'm going to take the top off of this thing and check it out, but that's not today. Today, I'm going to go ahead and tighten this back up again. But this is an Allen head in the top too, so you can work with that. It's too stiff to move by hand. This one's easy enough to move by hand. But anyway, just snug that up. You don't really need it tight, just snug. And that's how you adjust your fuel pressure with this regulator. But like I said, this is the end of this video. I wish I could say that we were going to take her for a ride, but once again, I have run out of time. This has been one of those weekends where I've just been going and getting nowhere. It's like paddling like crazy, and you're against the current and you're just not going anywhere. Kind of was that way. I did get the fuel pump in. I put it in backwards. Yeah, I didn't show you that. I was too embarrassed. But yep, put it in backwards, had to spin her around. I was wondering why I couldn't get it to work, but that's why. But it's working good now. It's working too good now, because now I've got gas popping out of the top of the carburetor. But there's fuel there now, and I don't dare start it because there's so much. I spilled so much fuel in it. I'm afraid that she's, she'll hydraulic on me. So, well, and we'll do a little bit of probably pull the plugs before we turn her over just to make sure. And but for now, I'm signing off. Thank you for watching. And as usual, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. If you have already subscribed, rock on. Thank you very much. I appreciate your watching my videos. And I always like to get those guys that say they don't like the video. So if you don't like it, don't watch it.